It's been 6 months since I left Texas. 6 months since I packed every memory into boxes, moved states, and disappeared without a single call from my family. Not one message, not one question, not even a missed birthday. It's strange what silence teaches you. It doesn't shout, it doesn't beg, it just stays. I could have left a note, a text, something, but I didn't. Because deep down I knew they wouldn't care. If someone doesn't ask where you are for years, would they notice if you vanished? The answer was clear when I closed the door to my old apartment. No one came to help, no one asked why. The only sound was tape stretching over cardboard, and my breath steady for once. I wasn't running, I was choosing myself for the first time. The sun that day was too hot for March. Sweat ran down my back as I sealed the last box. Linda lifted a crate of dishes. Sam knelt beside the suitcase, pressing the flaps closed with his knee. The room felt hollow. Just dust cardboard and an old armchair I didn't bother to sell. No memories worth keeping. Just silence, thick in the air. Still not going to tell them, Linda asked quiet. I kept writing on the label, bedroom, donate. They haven't asked where I live in years, I said. Why should I tell them I'm leaving? She didn't argue, just looked at Sam. He muttered, still wild to me. But to me, it wasn't wild. It was routine. I'd been invisible for so long, I forgot what it felt like to be seen. Call it peace, or just absence. Either way, I was ready. We loaded the last box into the U-Haul. The door shut with a heavy click. I stood there for a moment, palms pressed flat against the metal, not crying, not second-guessing, just breathing. That apartment had been mine for years, but it never felt like home. It held more silence than memories. Ready, Sam asked, swinging the keys. I nodded. More than ready. The drive was long. City grit faded into pine trees. Concrete turned into quiet, and something inside me started to loosen. All my life, I'd been the extra, the quiet one in the corner. Daniel was the center, the bright one. The reason the camera flashed. I was background, useful only when needed. No one missed me at the dinner table. No one asked if I was okay. So when I left, it didn't feel like losing family. It felt like finally choosing me. My new apartment wasn't special. One bedroom, outdated kitchen, a narrow balcony that looked out at trees I couldn't name. But it was mine, every inch of it. I hung my own photos, placed my desk by the window just the way I liked it, cooked dinners I actually wanted to eat. No one interrupted me. No one ignored me. I woke up early, worked remotely, watered the tiny herbs in my kitchen window. Linda and Sam visited every other weekend. We sat on the floor with tea, sometimes in silence. That silence felt different here. Gentler, lighter, earned. Grandma Edith called every Sunday, always at the same time. She never asked if I was free, she just called. No one else ever did. Some nights I laughed out loud, not bitter, just amazed. I had vanished, and still no one noticed. 1 week ago my phone lit up. The name on the screen made my chest tighten. Richard, my father. I didn't answer right away, just stared at it like it belonged to a life I no longer lived. On the fourth ring, I picked up. His voice came sharp, tense. You need to come home next weekend. No hello, no, how have you been? Just a command, a summons. I didn't ask why, didn't pretend to care. I said I have plans. Then I hung up. Leaning back in my chair, I looked out at the trees behind my apartment. The silence returned. Not sad, just familiar. This was how it had always been. No warmth, no wondering. Only when they needed something did I exist. When I was 8, I made the honor roll for the 3rd time. I placed the report card on the kitchen table right where Mom would sit with her tea. She glanced once, said, "Good job, honey," without looking up from her phone. That same week, Daniel got a C+ on a math quiz. He still got to pick where we ate dinner. I said nothing, but I remembered. The year I won the regional science fair, I came home with a trophy half my size. My teacher hugged me, told me to be proud. I was. At dinner, I placed the trophy on the counter. Dad said, "Let's not make a big deal, Margaret. Daniel has finals." That was the year I stopped bringing home anything. Not because I stopped trying, but because they never really saw me. By 17, I knew I'd be paying for college on my own. I got into a state school with a scholarship, picked up 2 part-time jobs, stopped coming home for holidays. It was easier that way. Cleaner, less pretending. I graduated early, moved into a shared apartment, took freelance work, whatever came first. My resume grew faster than my social life, but that didn't bother me. Work made sense. Work didn't forget me at the dinner table. After a few years, I landed a job at a cybersecurity firm in Seattle. Remote, flexible, full benefits. My boss said I had a gift untangling things others gave up on. My savings had commas, my fridge had real food, my inbox had a mortgage pre-approval. I was 29, and for the first time, I was thinking about buying a home, just mine. So when my father's voice called again, pulling me back into duty, dressed as family, I didn't flinch. He said it just like before. "You need to come home next weekend." Not a question, a demand, like I was still 18, still waiting for permission to breathe. I leaned back in my chair, stared at the ceiling. Why, I asked. There was a pause. Heavy, then the familiar sigh. The engagement dinner, Daniel's fiancé, her parents want to meet the whole family. Of course, not about me, not about reconnecting, just a seat to fill, a daughter-shaped placeholder for the photo. "I won't be there," I said. Another pause, sharper this time. "What do you mean you won't be there? I have other plans," and this time I didn't explain. "Margaret, this is important for your brother," he said. "Her family is traditional. They'll expect everyone there." There it was. Not concern. Not care. Just image. Optics. Us, not me. I breathed in slowly, then said I moved to Oregon 6 months ago. My voice didn't shake. "I'm not flying across the country for a dinner I wasn't even invited to until now." Silence. The charged kind. Like air before a storm. "You moved without telling us?" His tone dropped cold. "What's your address?" I almost laughed. "Do you even remember my last one?" He didn't answer. That silence, it told me everything. "That's not the point," he said. "No," I replied. "It's exactly the point. You're not asking because you care. You're asking because now it's inconvenient not to know." "Margaret, this isn't how families work," he said. I paused. Let the truth rise before answering. "No," I said, "but it's how ours has always worked." Then I hung up. No trembling, no second thoughts. I sat still, let the silence wrap around me like a coat I'd worn for years. Moments later, the screen lit up again. Missed call. Then another, then a text, then one from Mom, then from Daniel. I didn't answer. I made tea, stood on the balcony, watched the light leave the sky. By morning, their messages had changed. From reminders to guilt. From guilt to threats. 6 voicemails, 11 texts, 2 emails with subject lines like "Can we talk?" and "Family should stick together." And finally, my mother called. Her voice was tight, measured, like she was trying to sound warm without slipping out of control. "Sweetheart, this isn't like you," she began. "You've always been respectful. Your brother's counting on you." She mentioned Issa's parents again, said they were formal, that the family needed to show unity. Unity, a word they only pulled out when someone else was watching. "I'm not going," I said, calm, certain. "Margaret, don't be difficult." "I'm not," I replied. "I'm being honest." She sighed, frustrated now. "It's just one dinner. Smile, say a few words, and you can disappear again if that's what you want." I let that sit, then said, "You mean like I already have silence?" Then she hung up. After Mom hung up, Daniel called. His voice was softer, less scripted, more confused than angry. "Look, I don't know what's going on," he said. "Between you and Mom and Dad." He paused. "You know I don't get involved." Exactly. That had always been the problem. "But can't you just come?" he asked. For me, for a second, I almost felt something. Almost. But then I remembered all the years he stayed silent. When I was ignored. When they forgot me and he just let them. No, I said, not this time. He didn't argue, didn't apologize, just said, okay, then hung up. Even now, he still didn't get it. The next day, my father called again. His voice had changed. No more politeness, no guilt, no charm, just steel. If you don't show up to this wedding, he said, you're out of the will. I let the silence stretch, long enough for him to think I was weighing it. Then I answered, calm, steady. I make more money than all of you combined. I heard him inhale sharp and stunned, like I'd slapped him across the phone. You're bluffing, he said. If you'd ever asked about my life, I replied, you'd know I'm not. He didn't say another word, didn't argue. He just hung up. And that was the last call I ever took from him. After that, I stopped picking up. The calls didn't stop, but I did. I watched the messages roll in like waves, urgent at first, then desperate, then angry again. I didn't reply, not once. Instead, I opened my laptop, clicked back to the real estate listing I'd saved the week before. It was still there. 3 bedrooms, cedar siding, a little yard for a garden, no family photos on the walls, no room for guilt. The next morning, Grandma Edith called. As always, she didn't wait for permission. Hi, sweetheart, she said, her voice steady, soft but full of knowing. How's the air up there today? Cool and quiet, I said, just how I like it. We talked for a while, about the lavender I planted on the balcony, about the deer that wandered behind the trees. Then she paused, just long enough for me to know what was coming. They asked me to call you, she said, not apologizing, just telling the truth. I nodded to myself. Let me guess. Convince me to come back and play my part. They didn't use those words, she said, but yes. She took a breath. Your mother's been pacing. Your father's in a mood. They're panicking. Because they miss me, I asked. She hesitated. Because Issa's parents are watching and they're asking questions. I laughed, quietly. Of course. My absence only mattered because someone else finally noticed it. I'm not going, Grandma, I said. My voice didn't shake. It didn't need to. I know, she replied. I wouldn't either. That's why I always answered her calls. She never sugarcoated, never made excuses for them. She remembered my birthdays, sent postcards from her trips, asked about my work, and actually listened to the answers. She was the only one who looked at me and saw more than what I could give. I just wanted you to hear it from someone honest, she said, not because I think you owe them anything. Thank you, I said. Are you okay? I am, I replied. And for once I meant it. We stayed on the phone until my tea went cold, talked about furniture, about fig trees, about everything that didn't hurt. The wedding came and went without me. That morning, I hiked a quiet trail just outside Lithia Park. The air was crisp, soft pine beneath my feet, wildflowers blooming like no one told them to wait. I didn't check my phone, didn't wonder what was happening 3,000 miles away. I just walked, breathed, existed. When I got home, there was a missed call from Grandma Edith. I called her back before I even took off my boots. Hi, sweetheart, she said, enjoying your mountain air? I smiled. Every second. She exhaled. Slow. Well, she said the wedding happened. I waited. Let her fill the space. She always did, carefully. It was tense, she said, the kind that looks polite on the outside but makes your neck stiff just sitting there. I could picture it. My mother forcing a smile, my father barely speaking. Issa's mother kept looking around. Grandma continued, like she was waiting for someone. Me? I asked. Yes. And when she realized you weren't coming, she asked why. I closed my eyes. Let it sink in. What did they say? They tried a few versions, she said. First that you were sick, then that work called you away, then that you were traveling for a conference. All lies, I murmured. She knew, Grandma said. You could see it in her face. She asked why you weren't at the engagement party either. That silence they loved to hide behind it had finally cracked. Apparently, Grandma said Issa's mother had a private talk with your mom after the rehearsal dinner. No one knows exactly what was said, but your mom came out pale, quiet, like she'd just been read like a book. I almost smiled, not out of spite, just recognition. What about Daniel? I asked. He looked distracted all night, she said, kept glancing at the door, never smiled for long. And Isa, she looked uneasy, tense, like she didn't believe the version of your family they were trying to present. I sat down at my kitchen table, let the truth settle in my chest, not heavy but satisfying. They thought this was about one dinner, one photo, one seat. But Isa's parents saw it. The imbalance, the cracks, the missing daughter they only remembered when it became inconvenient. Grandma and I talked for 10 more minutes. Not about them, not about the wedding, just little things. New recipes, a thrift store chair she found, whether I'd paint the walls in my new place. After we hung up, I opened my laptop again. The house I'd bookmarked still available. I saved it one more time, just in case. A week passed, then Grandma called again. I was unpacking a box labeled kitchen, fragile when the screen lit up with her name. They're still talking about it, she said, and didn't need to explain what it meant. Isa's parents asked Daniel directly why you weren't included, why they'd only just learned you existed. And I asked. He tried to downplay it. But I think even he knows this won't just go away. The truth had been quiet for years. Now it had a voice. Isa's mother doesn't like being lied to, Grandma said, especially not by people who expect her to smile through it. I set down a stack of plates, leaned against the counter. Is the marriage already cracking? I asked. There's tension, she replied, the kind that lingers, the kind that doesn't fade with a honeymoon. I didn't feel joy, didn't wish them failure, just stillness, like watching ripples after dropping a single stone. They've started asking around, Grandma said. Your parents want to know who might have your new number, your address. She paused. They even asked me again. I looked toward the window. Light on the sink, a breeze moving through the trees. You didn't tell them, right? Of course not, she said. I told them if you wanted to talk, you would. I exhaled. Slow. Thank you. They're nervous, Grandma said, but not about you. I waited, already knowing what she meant. They're worried about Isa's parents, about what might be said, what this might mean for Daniel's future. I nodded to myself. Of course, always the optics, always the performance. They're worried about damage control, I said, not about the damage they caused. Yes, she replied quietly, but they're starting to realize this doesn't just disappear. I looked around my kitchen, sunlight warming the counters, clean dish towels, a window that opened to pine trees. This wasn't just a place I lived. It was mine. They're the ones who disappeared, I said. They just didn't notice until someone else finally did. She didn't answer right away, but her silence held a kind of pride I could feel through the phone. That night, I finished unpacking the last box in the kitchen, folded the paper, placed the plates gently in the cabinet. Then I lit a small candle by the sink. Let it burn while the sky dimmed outside. The house already felt like home. Quiet, solid, mine. 2 days later, a plain white envelope arrived. No return address. But the handwriting, I knew it. My father's blocky, careful print. Like he believed neatness could rewrite history. I stood by the mailbox, the envelope heavy despite its weight. I didn't open it, didn't wonder. Instead, I walked straight to the fire pit in the backyard, struck a match, watched the edges curl, blacken, disappear into ash. I already knew how it ended, and I didn't need to read it to remember. The next morning, I signed the final paperwork for the house. Every line, every box my name. No co-signer, no conditions, no strings, just mine. Linda and Sam texted that same afternoon, asking about flights. They wanted to visit next month, said they'd help me plant flowers, said we could build garden beds in the corner lot. I'd already cleared a space for tomatoes in time. Later that evening, I registered for a graduate course, digital forensics, not because I needed it, not for anyone else, just because I could. That same week, I changed my phone number. Only a few people got the new one, Grandma Edith. My boss, Linda, Sam. That was enough. No more surprise calls, no more texts filled with guilt, no more pretending I belonged where I never truly did. The house was quiet, but not the kind that hurts. Not empty, just honest. 6 months passed, seasons softened, the garden grew, and one warm afternoon my backyard filled with voices. Laughter, the smell of roasted corn and grilled peaches. Jasper manned the grill like it was an experiment. Sam danced barefoot on the grass. Linda poured sangria with a stack of mismatched cups in her other hand. Neighbors dropped by. A golden retriever flopped at my feet. A little girl tugged at my sleeve. My coworker's daughter. She handed me a bracelet made of string. "You're my aunt now," she said, "but the fun kind." I smiled, slipped it on without hesitation. Later, someone asked, "Do you have family back east?" I didn't pause. "Not anymore," I said, and meant it. There was a moment of quiet after I said it. Not awkward, just full. Then I looked toward the folding table. Jasper was laughing so hard he spilled lemonade down his shirt. Sam was showing off a playlist I didn't even know I had. Linda leaned back in a lawn chair, face lit by sunset, barefoot humming. This was family, not blood, but choice. When everyone had gone, I gathered the plates, folded chairs, stacked cups. The sky turned deep blue. Fireflies blinked near the fence. I stood in the yard, string bracelet still on my wrist. My house glowed behind me. It wasn't perfect. It didn't need to be. It was mine. And finally, that was enough. That night, I sat on the porch with a cup of tea gone cold. The breeze moved slow through the trees. Somewhere in the distance, a wind chime rang like a whisper. I thought about the wedding again. Not the ceremony, but the silence that followed it. No new calls, no more guilt texts, just quiet. But this time the quiet wasn't lonely. It was earned. It was mine. I checked my inbox. An email from the grad program class confirmed. I smiled. Another door opened. No permission needed. Then I closed the laptop, turned off the porch light, and for the first time in years I didn't fall asleep waiting for a message that never came. I had stopped hoping they'd change. And it no longer hurt. A few days later, Grandma called again. I was tending to the herbs on the balcony parsley had taken over. I picked up on the first ring. Her voice was calm, but I could tell she had something to say. "They're still trying," she said, "still pretending everything's fine." She paused, then added, "But Issa's parents keep asking questions. They're not letting it go. They've asked why you weren't involved, why no one mentioned you until the last minute. Why no one speaks your name?" I didn't answer right away. Just let her keep going. "Daniel's trying to hold it together," she said. "But he's cracking. He's not used to holding truth this long." I looked out over the trees. Branches swayed soft and slow. Some things bend, some things snap, and some were never rooted to begin with. "They're pushing harder now," Grandma said. "Your parents, trying to regain control." I stayed quiet. Let her words settle. "They asked me again last night. For your number, your address." I felt my chest tighten, not from fear, but from the same old exhaustion. "And you told them I asked?" "Of course not," she said gently. "I told them if you wanted to talk, you would." I sat down by the window, watched a squirrel dart across the fence. "They're not reaching out because they miss me," I said. "No," Grandma replied. "They're scared of what Issa's family might do, what people might say, what truth might come out. Not worry, not regret, just fear. Not for the daughter they forgot, but for the image they built without her. They're hoping it fades," Grandma said. "This tension, this mess they made." "But it won't," I replied. "Not this time." She was quiet for a moment, then said, "They're starting to realize that." I looked around the kitchen. New dish towels by the sink, a shelf I built myself, a window framing nothing but pine and sky. This life wasn't loud, wasn't flashy, but it was honest, and it was mine. "They didn't lose me last week," I said. "They lost me years ago. They just didn't notice until someone else did." She didn't reply right away, but I heard it. The exhale of pride wrapped in silence, the kind of love that doesn't demand but remains. A few days later, another envelope arrived. No name on the front, no return address. But I knew the handwriting. His again. Neat, careful, like that could erase what came before. I held it for a while, felt the weight of it not heavy with pages but with history. I didn't bring it inside, didn't wonder what was inside. I'd already heard enough. I walked to the fire pit, struck a match, watched the flame catch along the edge, the paper curled inward, turned black, then disappeared. No ceremony, no drama, just closure. Some goodbyes don't need to be spoken, they just need to burn. The next morning I went to the bank, signed every final paper for the house. No witnesses, no second names, no one to ask if I was sure, just me. And that felt right. I walked out, holding a folder with my name on every line. This place, this life was no longer borrowed. It was mine in full. That evening, Linda sent a message. Flights booked. Hope you're ready for a flower invasion? I smiled. I already had tools in the shed, a patch of soil cleared and a plan for tomatoes, thyme, and maybe sunflowers too. The kind of roots I chose for myself, not handed down, not demanded, just planted and growing. Later that week, I changed my number again. No more voicemails, no unknown names lighting up the screen. Only a handful of people got the new one, Grandma, Edith, Linda, Sam, my boss. That was enough. The silence that followed wasn't cold. It was clean. No more favors dressed as obligations. No more family dinners where I was the seat filler, not the daughter. I didn't miss the noise. I didn't miss the games. Just being forgotten had hurt. But choosing to disconnect, that felt like power and peace, the kind I never thought I'd be allowed to claim. The house was still. Evening lights spilled across the floor. No buzzing phone. No waiting for an apology that would never come. Just music playing low in the kitchen, a candle flickering near the sink, and the soft hum of everything in its right place. I brewed tea without checking the time, sat by the window as the sky turned pale orange, then faded to blue. This wasn't loneliness, it was presence. Without expectation, without performance. For so long I thought quiet meant being forgotten. Now I knew it meant being free. And in that freedom, I finally found something that had always been missing. A life that didn't need anyone's permission to feel like home. 6 months later, my backyard was full again. Laughter spilled through the open windows. Plates clinked. The grill sizzled. Jasper flipped burgers like it was science. Sam carried mismatched chairs across the lawn. Linda tied string lights to the fence with clothespins in quiet joy. Kids ran barefoot across the grass. A neighbor's dog laid down at my feet, tail thumping against the dirt. The garden we planted had taken hold. Tomatoes, basil, lavender, even the thyme thrived. I stood near the porch, hands dusty, watching it all. No one asked where I'd been. No one expected me to explain. They just showed up and stayed. This wasn't the family I was born into, but it was the one that chose to grow beside me. As twilight settled, someone from the next street over sat beside me with a paper plate in hand. After a while, they asked gently, "Do you have any family back east?" I didn't hesitate. Not anymore. No sting, no sadness, just truth. I looked toward the table, Jasper spilling lemonade, mid-laugh, Sam humming as he wrapped leftovers, Linda barefoot, swaying to music I didn't remember adding to the playlist. I gestured toward them. "But I have this." And I meant every word. Later, when the yard emptied, I stood by the garden, the string bracelet still wrapped around my wrist. Fireflies blinked near the fence. The house glowed behind me. It wasn't what I came from. It was what I built, and that made all the difference. I gathered the dishes one by one, the last of the cups still warm from someone's hand, stacked them slowly, not rushing, letting the quiet return without weight. I folded the chairs, set them by the shed, then paused at the edge of the garden. For years, I'd been an afterthought, a name mentioned too late or not at all. But here, I wasn't filling space. I was part of it. The laughter, the food, the messy joy of it all, none of it needed permission. It needed presence. And I had finally given that to myself. I looked up. The stars were just beginning to show. No calls, no apologies, and I didn't need them. Inside the house felt warm, not from the lights, but from what lingered footsteps, voices, the soft echo of real company. I set the last plate in the sink, rinsed it, slowly watching water swirl and disappear. There was no message waiting, no missed call, no hidden guilt pressing at the edge of peace. I dried my hands, looked around the kitchen. This was my space. No one had ever gifted it to me. No one had asked if I was ready for it. I built it moment by moment, choice by choice. And now, even if they tried to return, tried to pretend they couldn't reach me here. Not in this kind of quiet, not in this kind of truth. The next morning, I stepped out onto the balcony with coffee in hand. The air was crisp. The trees swayed gently, carrying nothing from the past. I checked my inbox, a message from my grad program, a recipe from Linda, a photo of the garden from Sam. But nothing from them. And that was perfect. They hadn't reached out in weeks. No more demands, no more veiled threats, just silence. But this silence wasn't empty. It was earned. I wasn't missing. I wasn't lost. I had simply stopped showing up for people who only remembered me when someone else was watching. This time, I stayed gone, and for the first time that felt like home. That evening, I walked the edge of the garden, barefoot, the soil still warm from sunlight. The string bracelet was still on my wrist, a little frayed but holding. I paused beneath the string lights, listening to crickets, feeling the air settle around me like it belonged. Inside, the house glowed softly. One lamp, an open book on the couch, no echo of yelling, no tight-lipped smiles, no role to perform, just space and self. I looked around not for who was missing, but for what was present. Peace, choice, enough. It wasn't perfect, but it didn't have to be. It was real. It was quiet. It was mine. And after everything, that was more than enough.